Kick us off.
Welcome, everyone, to MS Office Hours. It is Thursday, December 14th. Will you please introduce our hosts?
Hello, everybody. My name is Heather Cox.
I'm Victoria Dean.
Hey, I'm Garrett Chandler.
And I'm Andrea Singrio.
All right. And Garrett, that you didn't seem very happy. Maybe it's because you've been standing too long, you know?
I'm sorry. Hi, everyone. I'm Garrett.
All right. Well, we've got our friend Dwayne with us. And remember, I said be kind to Dwayne. Dwayne is going to talk to us about the new teams, or as Carlos has so kindly named it, teams, blah, 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 blah. And Dwayne, hook us up with some information, please.
I'll do my best. I'm going to start off by reminding everyone I'm new here. Yeah, be easy on me, okay? I want this to be more conversational. I don't have a PowerPoint for you because I don't think any of you need a PowerPoint. I'm going to do some screen sharing, go through Admin Center configurations, but I want to just go back to the basics of the rollout and the timeline as it relates to EDU specifically. Some of you may know this, but I want to cover it to make sure that all 100 and whatever of you know what the timeline is, because it's coming soon. New teams reached general availability status a while back, and with that will come the retirement of Teams Classic. That being said, in most cases, this isn't a big upgrade. It's faster. It uses less memory, which I'll be able to prove. And it's overall a lot more nimble. And that's where a lot of the development effort is going. It's all going into new teams. So any of the new features, before the recording started, we were just talking about how the Files app has been replaced with the newer and better version of OneDrive inside of Teams. Well, that comes to new teams, not to old teams, not to classic teams. So you're going to see features going there. That's where all the creative effort is going to, is into new teams. The timeline for new teams is really important, and how you control the rollout of new teams to your environment is also very important. There's a few major dates that I want to call out. The first one is January 2nd. January 2nd is the potential starting point for your organization to start receiving new teams as the default Teams client. There's a condition for that. The condition is if you haven't done anything in your Teams Admin Center, if you're just living on, autopilot and leaving the defaults and not modifying those defaults, you will get new teams starting January 2nd. Notice I said starting. I want everybody to be cognizant of the fact that it's not really realistic to switch tens of millions of clients to new teams in a single day. So the rollout will proceed over a period of time starting January 2nd. The default value, I'll demo this in a moment, but like I said, I just wanted to have a little heart-to-heart with everybody about this timeline first. But the default value of your Teams update policy would be called Microsoft controlled. I mean, it literally means we will control the rollout of new teams for your environment. So if you've left that alone, expect some changes when you come back from winter break on January 2nd. You will have been given a lot of heads up. So some of you, and maybe let me know in the chat, if you have been seeing a red banner pop up inside of your Teams client, and that red banner says something along the lines of, your organization is going to move you to new teams in January. If you are seeing that, that is a direct result of your global update policy being set to Microsoft controlled, and not Dwayne controlled, as Steve says in the chat. So it's not Dwayne. So if you see that red banner, then that is evidence that your global update policy has not been modified from the default value of Microsoft controlled. There are other options that you could configure that would either speed up, disable, or delay that January 2nd date. The next date that's very important is March 31st. March 31st is when the update policies in the Teams Admin Center are going to go away. Everyone will be set to, I guess in a roundabout way, you could say the one update policy to rule them all will be called New Teams Only. New Teams Only will switch everyone over to New Teams without a way to switch back. And big benefit of this, it'll clean up after itself. It will remove the classic client from the computer. And we will be left with not a new Teams, not an old Teams or a classic Teams. It will just be back to Teams. It will be one Teams to rule them all again. Now, if you have systems that for some reason don't meet the minimum requirements to move to new Teams, or you've got some issues that which I'll talk about in a moment around maybe some policies that are blocking it. If you have not been keeping your operating systems up to date, and I think the oldest supported version for new Teams is Windows 10 2004, I think. That's not even in support anymore, right? So if you don't have the a supported version of Windows, then you won't see the toggle. In those situations, the computer will continue to be able to run Teams Classic until June, after which it will be redirected to the web and Teams will finally go off in a, into the sunset on a, some sort of crazy Viking funeral. We're going to light a boat on fire. So that will be the end of Teams Classic for sure, giving you a little bit of time to mitigate and correct those issues with the systems that are, for whatever reason, are not compatible. So let me share my screen, and we're going to go through the Admin Center a little bit and talk about it. Okay. So I've got two computers. One of them is running Teams Classic, which is the one that's on my screen here. And my update policy is set for Classic Teams as default. But first, before I do that, I want to show a couple of things. I want to show that this computer has only been online for an hour. I rebooted it an hour ago. And let's take a peek at the memory utilization of Teams, 627 megs. This isn't a very stout machine. It doesn't have a lot of memory assigned to it. It's, it's using quite a bit. But I haven't done anything. It's just been running, right? The banner is mauve, not red. Thanks. If you see a mauve banner, gosh. Over here, though, take a look at this. This is my memory consumption of new Teams on this computer. And this computer, if I look at the uptime for it, it's been up for a day and a half, a little more than a day and a half. I've been actively using it. I've been doing stuff with it. I've hosted meetings with it. I've been running all sorts of things with it. And yeah, it's using less than 200 megs of memory. How many of you in education are on the standard 12-year hardware refresh cycle? You got systems out there with, I don't know, what, 8 gigs of RAM, something like that. So it's not uncommon for me to see systems with 8 gigs of RAM, and Teams Classic is consuming 4 of those, right? So one singular application is responsible for 50% of the memory consumption of the entire system. So I saw in the chat someone was saying that they have seen it use more than that. My work computer, like this is a demo computer, so I'm not actively in this computer all the time doing stuff, but my work computer has exceeded 1 gig of consumed memory, but it hasn't hit 4. So it is using significantly less memory than Teams Classic was using. And that's one of the big performance points that is highlighted on our homepage, which we'll look at here in a moment. So I just wanted to kind of like, I don't know, prove that a little bit, show it, put it on recording, that this is a big deal. This is a real world benefit. And I'm really excited, especially for the EDU sector, to see the benefit that this will bring, right? Using less memory on systems that are probably a little long in the tooth, if we're being honest, and maybe not, spec'd to the max for sure. The other thing that's faster while I'm in here is this is kind of I don't know, an interesting stat. Just switching between the panels in the interface is is quicker. Switching between channels is faster than it was in the Teams Classic client. You know, it's pretty snappy. And this is a VM. This is not like my home computer. This is a virtual machine in Hyper-V that's, you know, decently configured, but just the switching of through the interface is significantly snappier. So in addition to less memory consumption, we have a more responsive UI. So that's going to lead to better user experience, right? Somebody saw my demo tenant name. That's funny. I tried to think of something cheesy that sounded like Dwayne. So Eduane is what I came up with. All right, so let's head over to the admin center and actually take a peek at these policies that we're going to configure. So we're going to go to admin.microsoft.com and fire up Teams. I'm going to revisit that timeline because I really want to hammer that home. So we're in the Teams admin center under the Teams node, Teams update policies, and your global org-wide default policy. This is the one that's going to matter. This is the one that's going to hit everybody. I am currently set to Classic as default, and we'll talk about the differences in behavior between these policies. If you're at the default, Microsoft controlled, somebody tell me in the chat what happens January 2nd if you are set to Microsoft controlled. What are you going to come back to after winter break is over? There are a few more options. Classic Teams is default. What will happen if you set this? This is, you think about Classic Teams as default as opt-in. This is going to present your users with the toggle right here that they'll see up at the top. And it's, you can see there's a tooltip there where it's actually doing a little bit of encouraging. It's like, hey, you should try this. You know, this is cool. This is the opt-in setting. So if you set this setting for your global policy, you could ride with this until March 31st. So your users could move themselves into using new Teams at their own pace. Let's be honest though. How many of you think that of your 50,000 users, how many of them are going to be opted in by March 31st, right? So I say use this one first as kind of like a phase one deployment. Yeah, somebody said 3 out of 50,000. It's probably a realistic number. So how many of them are going to opt in? Probably not a lot. So you would consider this, or Dwayne would consider this, the phase one deployment of new Teams. This is where people can opt in. You're going to present them with a toggle, and you absolutely need to pair this up with communication. If you just turn this on and walk away from it, it's not going to be very successful. You have to have communication. We have some templates that I will show and some resources for you that are really, really good. The other option is new Teams as default. This is opt-in, like we're going to opt you in. We're not going to let you choose to do it. We're going to switch the toggle for you. And this is something that you could configure now on a pilot group. This is something you could configure for everybody if you wanted to just tear the Band-Aid off and run with it. You could set this in your global policy. Or you could blend it and say, we're going to run Classic for a while, and then, February, we're going to flip it to new Teams as default. You could do something like that. That gives people time to hopefully read your emails and your communications, see the toggle, be aware that there's a new version of Teams out there. It's present. FOMO is a real deal. How do I get it? That might encourage them to do it, and then give them some time, and then you flip it for them. Now, I want to talk about some of the differences in the interface that happen between these two different settings. So with Classic as default, your toggle is going to be up here at the top left. That changes when you set the system to new Teams as default. So let me switch over to this other system. It is set to new Teams as default, and you'll notice that there is no toggle up there. The toggle moves. So it is actually going to be underneath the meatball menu up here at the top left corner, or top right corner rather, and is going to be down here underneath the settings menu. This kind of has tripped some people up. I have seen people say, the toggle's gone. I can't switch back. I've been forced into new teams, and it's not true. The toggle just moved. So this would be phase 2. So phase 1, toggle at the top left, people can opt in. Phase 2 would be toggles underneath the settings menu. They have to try a little bit harder to switch back. Our switch back rates are very low. The interface, and I'm thankful for this as a previous EDU IT admin, I'm very, very thankful for the fact that this is not updating from Windows 7 to Windows 8. That was a massive change, right? That was a huge change. The interface was wildly different. Upgrading from classic teams to new teams, the interface is largely the same. Your documentation doesn't need to be completely rewritten. Your training material doesn't need to be completely rewritten. Teams still works like teams, channels still work like channels. The interface largely looks the same. So I'm very thankful for that. So because of that, our switchback rates are very low. I saw in the chat, somebody said, what about if you set it to not enabled? Well, if you set it to not enabled, then nobody will see a toggle at all. And that will only work for you until March 31st. So there is a new policy. There's going to be a 5th option coming. The 5th option, which will live down here, is going to be called new teams only. You heard me reference that a little while earlier. New teams only is how you will be able to make the choice to remove classic teams. So this is going to uninstall the per user installed version of Teams Classic, and the user will be left with new teams only, and they will have no toggle at all. So there's nothing to switch back to, right? So that's new teams only. That policy is coming very soon, and that will be the effective policy come March 31st. All right, I want to cover some of the documentation real quick in the last like 10 minutes or so. There's a website that all of you need to know about and hopefully have it in your favorites, aka.ms/new teams. When you go to aka.ms new teams, you'll be taken to the landing page for new teams. For all of the IT folks on the call, you're just going to scroll straight down the page and you're going to get to where it says technical documentation. But don't do that right away. I mean, yes, do that right away and get to it really quickly. However, don't overlook some of the stuff that's up here at the top. This is where you're going to get a lot of the material that you can give to your service desk, to your help desk, and to your end users directly. If you've deployed any learning system internally or communications that you're sending out, if you're lucky enough to have a communications manager, then you will have the ability to send this stuff out. And this is really polished, good looking material that is already ready for you to use and give to your end users. And one of the things that I think is really nice about this, and Joe's probably here somewhere, we always with our users focused on the why behind the switch. If we're asking you to do something new, we need to understand why you would want to do it. We need to be able to address the what's in it for me aspect of this change. We don't just turn things on and walk away. And you can see on my screen here, the why is being addressed right away in gigantic font. So, and it's really easy to understand. It's not technical. It's twice as fast. Switching, 1.7 times faster. Less memory consumption. People might care about that too at the end user level. So this is really, really good material that's already available to you that you can use. There's also an ebook here that is helpful for your power users. So, and somebody asked for the URL again. I'll drop it in the chat, but it is aka.ms/new teams. That is, there it goes. That is the shortener for this. I'd love to look at the stats of that, how many times that thing's been hit. This ebook, a little PowerPoint deck that you can download, is something that you can give to your help desk. You can give this to your service desk. You can give them information so that when the calls start to come in, they can feel prepared. They can even share this and give this to the end users if they want to. So this is going to go through the entire process and tell you about why we're doing this. What does it get you? And this is a little bit more technical, than just the original book that I showed. Also inside of here, if we scroll down a little bit, there's a big purple button that says user help and learning. So we've got learn.microsoft.com, right? That's where the technical documentation is at. Well, if you click on this one, you're going to go to support.microsoft.com, which is where you're going to have more end user facing material. So this is a great one to have in your back pocket as well, and make sure that people understand that they can get to this. And this is yet another way of explaining the why and the how. How do you switch? Why are we switching? What is this going to do? And it explains some of the benefits of new teams. This is a huge one that just jumped right out at my face. If any of you are guests anywhere, new teams is so much better. It's so much better. Multi-tenant, multi-account. I have multiple accounts. I love being able to have more than one account logged into my Teams client at the same time, so I can keep an eye on multiple tenants. Huge benefits there. For the techie people, this page is super important. So when you click on the technical documentation, you're going to be sitting in this little section right here. And this is you need to bookmark this. You need to just leave this open for the next 4, 3, 5, 6 months. Just leave it open and have it on your screen. This is updated pretty regularly, so you'll see the timestamps at the top of the materials. But this first one that I want to highlight is troubleshooting installation issues. There are situations where, due to the result of a policy, the app switcher doesn't function, and users will be presented with a kind of a technical looking error that says that there's a policy that's preventing this from happening. There are a few registry keys that are responsible for this, and I want to highlight that we will provide you with documentation on why that's happening. So New Teams is using a newer packaging mechanism called M6 or MSIX, not a classic MSI. So this is, you can think about this more along the lines of like a Windows Store app as far as how it comes down. So there are some policies that will configure these registry keys that are listed on this documentation here, that if these don't match up correctly, you could have a situation where you can't switch. One of those is being mitigated by an OS update that's in the giant blue box here on my screen. So if you've applied this patch for Windows 10 and Windows 11, then it will address one of those specific registry key policies, or the result of a policy. So it could be Intune doing it. It could be group policy doing it. You could have done it through configuration items with ConfigMan. However you're pushing out those settings, those are ways that those settings could get set that could prevent you from switching over to New Teams. And the last thing is, if you have the call quality dashboard configured, hopefully mine loads, but while I'm waiting on it to load, I'm going to talk about this. There's version information included in this. So clients at the bottom. Let's let it load for a second. So if you've set up this dashboard, you've got this deployed in your environment, you've got it tabbed into a new team, you'll actually get metrics on who's using New Teams. So you can see in my environment, in the last 28 days, 100% of my users are using Microsoft Teams 2.1 for Windows. So if you want data, right, you're piloting this, let's say you went with Dwayne's recommended phase 1 and you just flipped it on and let users opt into it. This is how you validate. This is how you get that data back to see like how many people actually flipped the button. So use the call quality dashboard. The data is built into it, and you'll have a good idea over the last 28 days how many people are using New Teams. Lets you know how many more you have left to go, right? So if you haven't set this up, definitely get this set up. Push it into a team with your help desk people. They can access it and look at it and understand what you're working with. I see some questions in the chat around call quality dashboard. One second. Let me pull up the link for you. I'll paste it into the chat here for you. Hopefully everybody can see the chat, but if not, I'll pull up a browser. So the information on how to deploy this is available all on this page. I just dropped it in the chat. Looks like Steve beat me to the link by like, I don't know, 3 seconds. But yeah, this is very, very informative. This will give you tons of information around call quality, what types of devices are in use, sound cards that are in use. You could zero this in to figure out which driver is causing the most jitter on a phone call. Is pretty incredible. But in the context of today's training, it will give you information about the rollout of your new Teams client. So data is important. This is important. January 2nd, March 31st, and June is when everything for Teams Classic is done. So, all right, I'm gonna hush up. If we have any questions, or have we been? I saw a ton of chat, but I couldn't keep my brain on it. My brain doesn't go that way.
Yeah, we have just a couple of minutes. So Joseph has his hand up, and then Carlos does. And this might be the only the only hands we can address, but other questions can go into the chat. So Joseph, why don't you hit us up first?
Yeah, so if I'm understanding correctly, you said one of the reasons somebody might not see the toggle, if we do have the ability for some folks in our org to switch, somebody doesn't see the toggle, would that indicate that their system is older and out of support?
That's one possible reason. Yeah. So on the technical documentation page, under the, I'm going to make an assumption that it's Windows. So it's going to talk about deploying upgrade to the new Office using policies, for example. Let me reshare my screen real quick. I know we're running low on time. Sorry, boss. I'm trying to go. You're going to see a table here of prerequisites. Make sure that that system meets those prerequisites. If it doesn't meet those prerequisites, then it's likely not going to see the toggle at all.
Because we've had some users that should be eligible based on the OS version. We check for updates, nothing there, etc. Still don't see it. So we've been pulling down the M6 file, unpacking it into a folder, and then we can launch new teams from there. But obviously, we can't deploy that to 35,000 people. And
yeah, that's hard. I mean, there is bulk deployment options, and also, gosh, I wish I'd have talked about more stuff. There are the deployment mechanisms are important, and I do want everyone to know and understand that it is potentially also being included in your monthly Office updates for your Office client. Again, that technical documentation page, that's where you want to go. But under update with the M365 apps, you will see the release schedule for the different channels of Office, and you likely have it already installed with those update channels.
And let's quickly do Carlos, but before Carlos goes, I don't want to continually volunteer Dwayne to do sessions, but maybe we can do another session.
You're the boss.
When we get back into the new year on it. But Carlos, do you have something quick for us to wrap us up?
Yeah, so I have been playing with, the new teams, and I put a screenshot on the chat. One of the issues I've been having is I habitually create new teams based on a 365 group. My starting point for a number of reasons is there. And as you can see in that screenshot, it's like, what? I can see, doesn't give me that option. Also, in the past, if I'm trying to remember correctly, I could also use a template and associate a template with a 365 group to generate a new team. So both of those 365 group connections are seemingly off.
Templates aren't an EDU thing. There's only 4. You're going to get staff, PLC, class, and other. The only way you can create a team based off of a template in an academic or EDU tenant is via PowerShell or Graph. The create a team from a team, we're tracking that. Yeah, I whine a lot productively whine. And so when I find stuff like that, I report it so that we know it's there. But yeah, that's pretty much the primary way that EDU users can create a template is by basing it off of an existing team.
Yeah, and that's fine. But again, I used to be able to say create, where my screenshot is showing, right? Create a team from a group. And I used to have access to all my groups and then be able to spin up a team based on my groups. I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, we're tracking that.
Okay. And then the second one, there were 1 or 2 templates where I'd say, use this template and tie it to this group in teams 1, blah, blah. Those were really useful things that I've lost right now.
That's all good. Yeah, that's all good feedback. Those are obviously things we want to continue to hear. And it does seem like that there's probably much more we can continue to talk about and learn. And I think, with the date that Dwayne's provided, obviously, we'll probably need to circle back. And I don't think that that's a problem. So what I'll do is I'll stop the recording in just 1 second. Just a note, we are off from now until the second week of January. So we hope that you all have an amazing holiday season, whatever it is you celebrate, whether you do or you don't. I hope you're happy, healthy, safe. Everything is wonderful for you in the next several weeks. We will hopefully see you all again January 11th. That's our co-pilot presentation. And then after that, maybe we can get our friend Dwayne to come back once team says, we've rolled a couple of those things out, and then he can maybe address a few additional pieces of information. What I'm going to do is, because this was highly attended and top of mind, I'm going to get this before I walk away. I'm going to get this posted. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. As always, we love you. You are an amazing audience, and we enjoy so sincerely spending this time with you. It's been a fantastic 2023, and we cannot wait to see all of you again in 2024. So stay safe, stay happy, take care, and yeah, we'll see y'all again soon. Have a great night, everyone.